All right, so I let you guys vote and decide on this, and clearly, your decision for this discussion was that you guys didn't really want to do much discussion about it at all. You would rather, you wanted me to talk about these with you, which is a little unfortunate. I was really hoping to get some of your feedback on this. I think it's more important that you guys are reflecting on these right now as opposed to me. My students in my seated class didn't have a choice. They had to come prepared to discuss these. Um, I think that's the biggest thing, and I've told you guys that before. I think that's the biggest difference between the seated and the online course, is that there is just so much more engagement in the seated section because we do so much open discussion. Um, we talk to each other, they talk to me. And we ask each other questions. It's kind of an open forum, right? They ask me anything they want, and I try to answer it as honestly as possible. Um, so, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and go through a few of these with you guys. I'm not going to go through all 50 of them. I'm kind of just going to talk to you guys about why I think it's important to take a minute to reflect on the decisions that you are making, and how they're going to impact your career in the future, right? And then I'll hit a few of these that I think are very important to talk about. Um, I hope that you guys viewed Allie's presentation that I posted for you guys. It ties into this pretty well. It's a discussion about work-life balance. It's a discussion about stress management. It's a discussion about setting goals and reflecting on those goals, right? It's a very interesting topic. The reason I had her present for us is that I feel like it's something we don't talk about a lot in accounting, particularly in these accounting classes. You know, your accounting 321 instructor is not talking to you about the stress that you are going to be dealing with and the lack of a work-life balance that you're going to have, even as an intern, when you're working through what they call busy season during when you're preparing taxes, right? You're going to be working 50, 60 hours a week probably, and you've got to find a way to deal with that stress, to manage that stress, particularly if you're a non-traditional student and you've got a wife or a husband and children, and things outside of work that you have to pay attention to. Um, so you've got to find a way to deal with those things. And so all of that goes into the decisions you are making right now as a student. And you should be taking time to reflect on the decisions that you're making. So the first questions here about the profession, really, you should be thinking about this constantly, right? This is why you chose accounting. Do you want a career that provides a high degree of flexibility? We've talked about that. You guys gave presentations on those, right? All kinds of different things that you can do in the accounting profession. Do you want to pursue a CPA? How do you get to that 150 credit hours? Do you go with the MAC program, which again, we had a Dr. Church, who is the head of the accounting department, came in and spoke to the seated students about the MAC program and some of the updates to that, and how going through the Masters of Accountancy program really is such a benefit for you guys. Okay. When you're thinking about pursuing the CPA, do you know where you want to pursue it at? Which state? Each state's laws differ. Their requirements are different by state. So do you know what your credentialing requirements are for each state? Do you know how to start even pursuing a CPA? If you ask students now that are like graduate students that are currently getting ready to sit for the CPA exams, the amount of time it takes to even just get qualified, right? You have to submit all of your qualifications for them to even say, okay, we'll allow you to test. I mean, that could take upwards of 2 months to get through. And then after that, you've got to apply for what we call a notice to sit or an NTS. And that could take another couple of weeks or a month. So it's all things you've got to be planning out, right? Do you want to do tax? Do you want to do audit if you're thinking about going that public route? These are all things you really need to be considering. And that's why we recommend, like, if you're going to do an internship, do 2 internships, right? Do one with tax and one in audit. See which one that you prefer, okay? Here we got making the most out of college. One thing I always recommend for students is to join some of these organizations, right? Join some of the student organizations like Beta Alpha Psi or Accounting Club, right? You're going to network. You're going to meet people that are going to help you out in your career, right? Are you taking advantage of all the resources that your college has? Are you taking advantage of tutoring labs? Are you taking advantage of scholarship opportunities, right? What are you doing to make sure that you've got an internship, or trying to secure that internship while you're working through college? Okay. One thing, if you paid any attention, if you looked at the slides for the Masters of Accountancy program, they're going to allow you to to count some of an internship towards a credit in your undergrad, and then even more credit towards your graduate degree. So that should help you be able to get that internship. Instead of having to take a semester off, you can count that experience towards your degree, right? The presentations that I asked you guys to do, those really were about the career path. What is something that you are passionate about, right? Give me something that you are passionate about. Find something that really interests you that you can talk about for 8 minutes, okay? That's really what I wanted to see from you guys. And for the most part, that's what I got. I was very pleased with the majority of the presentations, and they were all pretty unique. It wasn't everybody just doing the CPA exam, right? It was, hey, I'm going to do a CFE, or I want to get into sports accounting, or this other field in accounting, right? It's something I'm interested in, okay? So another thing to think about, work-life balance is important. It's so important, especially as you get older. Any of you that are non-traditional students are going to know this already, but having that work-life balance, having something to identify with outside of just being an accountant, right? Not working, 60 hours a week, every month, of the year. Maybe you work that for a couple months out of the year, but then the rest of the time you get a pretty balanced life. You need to take those things into consideration, especially if you're thinking about going into public accounting. And that's why, I'll be honest, there's so much burnout in public accounting, is because you get there in your first couple of years, you work a lot of hours, and people want to move on and they want to go work in the private industry. So, enhancing your technical skills, we like to say we are lifelong learners in accounting, especially if you get any kind of certification, you're going to be required to do continuing education, right? So CPE, continuing professional education, you'll have to get, I know with like the CPA, the CPA licensure, you have to have a certain number of hours every 2 years or every 3 years in Missouri. Same thing with like my CFE licensure, I have to have 20 hours every year of continuing education. And a specific amount of that has to be for ethics and fraud. So you need to be aware that once you graduate, you're not done learning, right? I would venture to say once you graduate and you get out into the career field, you're just starting your learning, right? What we do here at the school is we give you a pretty good foundation and a good base of knowledge so that you can go out and you can have a conversation about accounting with your supervisors and your managers and your directors and all that good stuff. But you're going to really learn about accounting once you get into those positions, right? So if you're going to be an accountant, you've got to be willing to be a lifelong learner. You've got to realize that your learning is really starting as soon as you graduate. I didn't do a group project this semester. Group projects seem to be really difficult online, especially with asynchronous folks and so many distance learners. It's hard to get everybody set up and do a time. We got to meet at the specific time, right? But just know you are going to have to work with other people frequently, very frequently. If somebody has ever told you that as an accountant you will sit at a desk and you will never talk to anybody ever again, you will just be left alone to do your work, they are wrong. Okay? Yes, I'm sure there are jobs out there where you can do that, but that's not where your value is going to be in the career field. Okay? Your value really is going to be in analysis and communication, and being able to communicate that kind of information to both lay people and other professionals in the field. Okay, so you're going to want to stay in touch with your classmates, with faculty, with former employers. Always leave an employer, if at all possible. Leave in good standing so that you can go back and use that person as, maybe a reference. I know that I have a couple of managers of mine that I have used as references before. You just leave on good terms, leave a good name for yourself, right? Um, don't ever leave anywhere angry or on bad terms if you can help it. I know sometimes that's just almost impossible, but if you can, just leave on good terms. Make sure that you're building and maintaining those relationships, because they're going to be so important. Um, Honestly, every job, every professional job I've gotten has been because I've known somebody, right? And that's why I try to get across to the seated students really is, get to know your classmates. These are the people that are going to be going through the program with you all the way, probably all the way through your graduate program. So you want to get to know them, and you want to get to know the faculty, right? Because they're going to be the ones that are writing letters of recommendation. We're the ones that are talking to employers frequently, and they're asking us questions. Hey, do you know so and so? They're a student at MSU. What does it look like? What does their work ethic look like? They're asking us questions like that. We get contacted by these employers, so you got to build these good relationships, right? I am much more inclined to answer questions about students who have actually talked to me, have actually communicated with me, right, than I am a student who, yeah, they're in my class, but they've never said a single word to me. I can't really answer questions for employers about that student, but a student that's actively engaged in the class, that is engaged with their classmates, engaged with me, I can answer those questions, and I know other instructors feel the same way. So building relationships, building that network is so, so important, and you guys are starting now, right? You guys are starting to build that network right now. So it's so important, okay? Communication is also huge in accounting. You've got to be able to write well. You've got to be able to speak well. You've got to be able to comfortably and efficiently give presentations in front of people. You've got to be able to answer questions that you may not be expecting. So, communication skills are extremely important. I've told my seated class, and I may not have told you guys, but I think that if you're a decent accountant, you're going to have a decent job. If you're a good accountant, you're going to have a good job. You're going to be able to find good jobs. If you're a good accountant or even a decent accountant that can communicate, that is just going to increase your value by leaps and bounds. I was told at the state auditor's office that is one reason they liked sending me on fraud audits, was because I was able to communicate well with the staff at these offices where the fraud was occurring, and I made people feel comfortable with me. So communication was a key ingredient to my success as a fraud auditor. And it's not going to be much different for you guys out in the real world either. Your ability to communicate with people and to, whether it's clients, whether it's other staff, whether it's your bosses, is going to go a long way to help you. Avoiding burnout, we talked about this with Allie. I would recommend, if you want to know more about this burnout and stress, value creating mindsets, things like that, I would go back and watch Allie's presentation that I posted last week. It's excellent. It is very interesting. I really wish there had been a way to do it online for you guys. But with your class being asynchronous, I cannot require you guys to be online at a certain time or anything like that. So, but I would go back and watch that if you want to see anything about stress and goal setting and things like that. It's a really, really good presentation with a lot of really interesting perspectives on goals and stress. So really, the last thing that I think is really, really important here are your ethics. Okay, so you've got to be an ethical person right here. These core values to embrace. Okay, these are very important, especially those last two. Are you willing to do the right thing, even if it negatively impacted you in the short term? You have to be able to. As a new accountant, you don't really know what's going on. I'm just going to be honest with you. You've got no clue. They're expecting you to be learning. So what happens if you have a CFO come up and ask you to make a journal entry, right? Are you going to question it? You probably should, okay? But you're not always going to. What if you make the wrong journal entry? We are in a career, you guys are choosing a career where making a journal entry like that, making the wrong journal entry just because somebody asks you, can land you in jail. Okay, you become a part of that fraud. So you've got to be willing to say no or to question things, even if it's got a negative impact on you right now. Because in the long run, you're going to be that person of integrity. You're going to be the person that showed the good ethics, the good morality, right? And that is so, so important in the field of accounting. Are you committed to a high standard of personal ethical conduct? It fits right in with that question, right? You have got to be a person of integrity. We are looking for accountants with integrity. You're messing with one thing that really can make people mad, and that's their money, right? And as an accountant, you have so much power and control over that money. You've got to be an ethical person. You are going to run into situations where your ethics are going to be called into question. You're going to run into situations where you're going to have to ask yourself, do I do the right thing right now? It's going to happen. It will happen to each and every one of you. And when that time comes, hopefully you are a person who is committed to that high standard of personal ethical conduct, that you are willing to do the right thing, even if it has a negative impact on you in the short term. So having said that, that's really all I wanted to talk to you guys about. I just wanted to make sure you guys know you should be reflecting on these things, right? Think about these things as you're scheduling out your classes. Think about these things as you're interviewing for internships, as you're accepting positions for internships. Be reflecting on this career, okay? There's a lot that goes into us. We are a licensed profession. We are a widely recognized profession. It's a noble profession. So you should be reflecting on these things as you go through it. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me, call me, set up an office visit, set up a Zoom call, whatever the case may be. I am always happy to talk to you guys. All right. Thanks.